The rain hammered against the tall windows of the Arbridge mansion like a relentless drumbeat, each drop a reminder of the storm brewing both outside and within. The grand estate sat perched on a hill in Connecticut, its stone walls and iron gates a fortress of wealth that separated the family from the rest of the world. Inside, the marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers, and oil paintings of ancestors stared down from gilded frames, silent witnesses to a family slowly unraveling. Daniel Arbridge stood in his home office, staring at reports he couldn't focus on. At 42, he'd built an empire in commercial real estate that most men could only dream of. His name opened doors. His signature moved millions. But tonight, none of that mattered. His 6-year-old daughter, Emma, was sick, not with a cold or flu, something deeper, something the doctors couldn't quite explain. She'd been growing weaker for weeks, her bright blue eyes losing their spark, her laughter fading into silence. He ran a hand through his dark hair, now streaked with premature gray from stress and sleepless nights. His wife Carolyn had stopped being a partner years ago. These days, she was more interested in her charity galas and country club lunches than their daughter's declining health. The staff, a rotating cast of nurses, housekeepers, and assistants, went through the motions, but Daniel sensed their indifference. Everyone was paid well to do their jobs. No one seemed to actually care. Everyone except one person he barely noticed. Leanne Mercer had worked at the mansion for 8 months. She was 34, though the weight of her life made her seem older. Her dark skin bore the lines of hard years. Her hands calloused from cleaning floors, richer people walked across without a second thought. She'd taken the job through an agency. No formal interview, just a background check and a uniform 2 sizes too big. She needed the money. Her younger brother was in a group home after a car accident left him with brain damage. The bills never stopped coming. At the mansion, Leanne kept her head down. She cleaned the East Wing bedrooms, polished silverware no one used, and ate her meals alone in the staff kitchen. The other housekeepers gossiped and complained. Leanne stayed quiet. She'd learned long ago that invisible people survived longer in places like this, but she noticed things others didn't. She noticed that little Emma's room was always too cold, the thermostat set wrong by someone who didn't care. She noticed the girl's medication sat untouched on the nightstand some mornings, missed doses that no one logged. She noticed Emma's breathing grew labored at night, her small chest rising and falling with effort that shouldn't be there for a child so young. And Leanne noticed that no one else seemed to notice at all. One Tuesday evening, as Leanne vacuumed the hallway outside Emma's room, she heard coughing, wet, rattling coughs that made her freeze mid-motion. She turned off the vacuum and listened. The sound came again, desperate, struggling. Leanne glanced down the hallway. Empty. She knocked softly on Emma's door. "Miss Emma? You okay in there?" A weak voice responded. "It hurts." Leanne's training told her to find someone official, call the nurse, report it properly, but her heart told her something different. She opened the door. Emma lay in her canopy bed, surrounded by stuffed animals and princess-themed blankets. Her blonde hair was damp with sweat, her face flushed with fever. The humidifier across the room sat empty and unplugged. The water pitcher on her nightstand was bone dry. "Oh, baby girl," Leanne whispered, crossing the room quickly. She pressed the back of her hand to Emma's forehead, burning up. "Where's your nurse?" "She said she had a phone call," Emma managed between breaths. "That was a long time ago." Leanne's jaw tightened. She filled the water pitcher from the bathroom, got Emma to drink, then checked the medication log. 2 doses missed. She found the prescriptions, 1 antibiotic, 1 for inflammation, and carefully measured out what Emma should have received hours ago. "Here, sweetheart. This'll help you feel better." Emma took the medicine without complaint, then looked up at Leanne with those big blue eyes. "Are you an angel?" Leanne smiled sadly. "No, baby. Just someone who sees you." If you're feeling this story, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss what happens next. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Let's build this community together. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Leanne couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Emma alone in that big room, struggling to breathe while people paid to care for her scrolled through their phones elsewhere. At 2:47 a.m., Leanne made a decision that would change everything. She got dressed, slipped quietly through the servants' quarters, and made her way to Emma's room. The door creaked softly as she opened it. Emma was asleep, but her breathing was still labored. Leanne pulled a chair close to the bed, sat down, and took the child's small hand in hers. She began to hum, an old gospel song her grandmother used to sing. Then she prayed. Not loud or showy, just quiet words asking for healing, for comfort, for someone to watch over this little girl who deserved so much more than she was getting. She stayed for 3 hours, checking Emma's temperature, adjusting her blankets, making sure she was comfortable. When Emma stirred and seemed frightened by a nightmare, Leanne stroked her hair and whispered, "You're safe now. I'm right here." By the time dawn broke, Emma's fever had broken too. Her breathing eased. Color returned to her cheeks. Leanne slipped out before anyone woke, returning to her quarters exhausted but somehow lighter. She'd done what felt right, even if no one would ever know, but someone was about to find out. Upstairs, Daniel Arbridge had made a decision of his own. After another argument with the night nurse about protocol and boundaries, he'd ordered a hidden camera installed in Emma's room, not to spy on his daughter, but to catch whoever was failing her. He suspected negligence, laziness, maybe even theft of medications. He had no idea he was about to capture something entirely different. The camera went live that very evening, tucked discreetly into a decorative bookshelf, its lens aimed perfectly at Emma's bed. Daniel told no one, not Carolyn, not the staff, not even his head of security. This was his investigation. That night, as the mansion settled into darkness and Leanne once again made her way to Emma's room, the camera silently recorded every moment. What Daniel would see when he reviewed the footage the next morning would shatter every assumption he'd ever made about the people under his roof. The quiet maid he'd never bothered to learn the last name of was about to become the most important person in his world, and the truth she'd been hiding in plain sight was far more powerful than he could have imagined. Daniel Arbridge woke at 5:30 a.m. to his phone's alarm, the same time every weekday for the past 15 years. Discipline had built his fortune. Routine kept it growing. But this morning felt different. A weight sat on his chest, half anxiety, half anticipation. Today, he'd review the camera footage from Emma's room. He showered quickly, dressed in his usual charcoal suit, and skipped breakfast. Carolyn was still asleep in the master suite at the opposite end of the hallway, where she'd been sleeping separately for the past 2 years. Their marriage had become a business arrangement. She got the lifestyle. He got the appearance of stability. Neither pretended anymore. In his office, Daniel locked the door and pulled up the security software on his laptop. The camera had been recording for exactly 14 hours. He scrubbed through the early evening footage, Emma eating dinner brought by the evening nurse, a woman named Patricia who spent more time on her phone than attending to the child. Daniel made a mental note about that. At 8:47 p.m., Patricia left the room. Emma was alone. Daniel fast-forwarded. Emma read a book, struggled with her breathing, eventually turned off her bedside lamp around 9:30. The room went dark, except for the soft glow of a nightlight shaped like a crescent moon. Nothing unusual, just a sick child, alone in a mansion full of people who were supposed to care. Then at 2:51 a.m. the door opened. Daniel leaned forward, squinting at the screen. A figure entered, small-framed, moving carefully in the darkness. The infrared camera switched on automatically, bathing the room in ghostly green light. Daniel's pulse quickened. Who the hell was this? The figure approached Emma's bed, and as it moved into better view, Daniel froze. It was the maid, the one who cleaned the east wing. He'd seen her around, but never really looked at her. Leanne. He wasn't even sure of her name. "What is she doing?" he muttered aloud. He watched as Leanne pulled a chair close to Emma's bedside and sat down. She reached out and took Emma's hand, gently, carefully, like she was holding something precious. Then she began to speak. Daniel turned up the volume. "Father God, I come to you tonight asking for your healing hand on this beautiful child. She's suffering, Lord, and she don't deserve this pain. Please touch her body, ease her breathing, bring down this fever that's been burning her up." Daniel's breath caught. She was praying. Leanne's voice was soft but steady, carrying the weight of genuine faith. This wasn't performative, this wasn't for show. She believed every word she was saying. And more than that, she was saying them for his daughter in the middle of the night, when she thought no one was watching. The prayer continued for several minutes. When Leanne finished, she didn't leave. She began to hum, a melody Daniel didn't recognize but found strangely comforting even through the laptop speakers. Emma stirred slightly, and Leanne immediately placed a hand on the child's forehead, checking her temperature. "Still too warm, baby girl," Leanne whispered. "But we gonna get through this. You're stronger than you know." She stood and moved to the bathroom. Daniel heard water running. Leanne returned with a damp cloth and carefully placed it on Emma's forehead. She adjusted the blankets, checked the humidifier, which she'd apparently filled earlier, and made sure Emma's water pitcher was within reach. Then she sat back down and continued humming. Daniel checked the timestamp. It was now 3:47 a.m. Leanne had been there for nearly an hour. She should have been asleep in the staff quarters. She should have been off duty, resting for another long day of cleaning rooms and being invisible. Instead, she was here, with his daughter. At 4:15 a.m., Emma woke with a start, crying out, a nightmare. Daniel watched as Leanne immediately leaned in, stroking Emma's hair and speaking in soothing tones. Shh, shh, it's okay. You're safe. Just a bad dream. I'm right here, sweetness. Nothing's gonna hurt you while I'm here. Emma's crying subsided. In the green glow of the infrared camera, Daniel could see his daughter's face turn toward Leanne. Don't leave, Emma whispered. I ain't going nowhere, Leanne promised. I'll stay right here till the sun comes up. And she did. Daniel watched the entire recording, unable to look away. Leanne stayed until 6:02 a.m., when the first light of dawn began filtering through Emma's curtains. Only then did she stand, stretch her back. She'd been in that chair for over 3 hours, and quietly slip out of the room. The footage ended. Daniel sat back in his leather chair, staring at the frozen frame on his screen. His hands were shaking. He'd installed that camera expecting to find evidence of negligence, maybe grounds to fire someone. Instead, he discovered something he hadn't seen in his own home in years. Genuine care, selfless love, sacrifice, from a woman he'd never even bothered to acknowledge. He played the footage again, and again. Each time, new details emerged. The way Leanne positioned Emma's pillows to help her breathe easier. The way she sang portions of hymns between prayers. The way she seemed to know exactly when Emma needed comfort before the child even fully woke. This wasn't just kindness. This was devotion. Daniel glanced at the clock on his desk. 7:23 a.m. Downstairs, the household would be waking. He needed to do something with this information, but what? Confront Leanne? Thank her? He felt paralyzed by the weight of what he'd witnessed. A knock on his office door startled him. Mr. Arbridge? It was Marcus, the head of household staff. Your 8 o'clock with the investors has been moved up. They're arriving in 20 minutes. Damn. Daniel had forgotten completely. I'll be down in 5, he called back. He closed the laptop, but his mind stayed trapped in that bedroom, watching a woman the world had rendered invisible perform acts of heroism no one was supposed to see. The meeting with the investors was a disaster. Daniel couldn't focus. He gave vague answers to specific questions, missed cues for negotiation, and finally cut the meeting short with a half-hearted excuse about a family emergency. The investors left looking concerned. His CFO, Martin, pulled him aside in the foyer. Daniel, what's going on? You're not yourself today. I'm fine, Daniel lied. Just worried about Emma. Martin's expression softened. He'd known Emma since she was born. How is she? Any improvement? Daniel thought about the footage, about Leanne's hands holding his daughter's, about prayers whispered in darkness. Actually, he said slowly, I think she might be getting the best care she's ever had. I just didn't realize it until now. Martin looked confused but didn't press. Well, that's good to hear. Take care of yourself, Daniel. You look exhausted. After Martin left, Daniel found himself walking through the mansion with new eyes. He passed the morning shift housekeepers, 3 women chatting near the laundry room. None of them were Leanne. He checked the schedule posted in the staff kitchen. Leanne worked the 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. shift today, with duties listed as East Wing bedrooms, main staircase, library. He glanced at his watch. 9:47 a.m. Daniel made a decision. He would wait for her, and when she arrived, he would. What? Thank her? Question her? He wasn't sure. All he knew was that he needed to look this woman in the eyes and understand who she really was. At 9:58 a.m., the staff entrance door opened. Leanne walked in wearing the standard gray uniform, her hair pulled back in a simple bun, carrying her worn canvas bag. She looked tired. Of course she did, Daniel thought. She'd been up half the night caring for someone else's child. She signed in at the staff log, exchanged quiet greetings with the kitchen manager, and headed toward the supply closet to gather her cleaning cart. Daniel intercepted her in the hallway. Excuse me, he said, his voice coming out more formal than he intended. Leanne, right? She looked up, clearly startled that he knew her name. Her eyes widened slightly. Yes, sir. Mr. Arbridge. Is there something wrong? Up close, he could see the details the camera hadn't captured, the kindness in her brown eyes, the worry lines on her forehead that spoke of hard years, the way she held herself, humble but dignified, like someone who knew their worth even if the world didn't. "No," Daniel said, then corrected himself. "Actually, yes. Could you come to my office? I need to speak with you about something." Panic flashed across Leanne's face. "Sir, if I did something, you're not in trouble," Daniel assured her quickly. "Please, just 5 minutes." Leanne hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, sir." As she followed him down the marble hallway toward his office, Daniel could see her hands trembling slightly. She thought she was about to be fired. She had no idea she was about to have her entire life changed. He opened the office door and gestured for her to enter. Leanne stepped inside cautiously, staying near the door as if ready to flee. Daniel closed the door and turned to face her. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence stretched between them. A millionaire in a $1,000 suit and a maid in a second-hand uniform, separated by every social boundary imaginable. Except one thing connected them. Emma. "I installed a camera in my daughter's room," Daniel began. Leanne's face went pale. "Mr. Arbridge, I can explain." "Please," he interrupted gently. "Let me finish." He moved to his desk and turned the laptop screen toward her. The frozen image showed Leanne sitting beside Emma's bed, holding the child's hand. "I saw what you've been doing." Leanne's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry. I know I shouldn't have been in there. I know it wasn't my place, but she was alone and she was struggling and nobody was checking on her and I couldn't." Her voice broke. Daniel felt his own throat tighten. "How long have you been doing this?" "About 6 weeks," Leanne admitted quietly. "Ever since I realized her night nurse wasn't always staying the full shift. I'd hear Emma coughing, struggling, and I couldn't sleep knowing she was alone like that." "6 weeks," Daniel repeated, stunned. "You've been losing sleep for 6 weeks to care for my daughter? And you never told anyone?" Leanne wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "It wasn't about credit, sir. It was about making sure she was okay." Something broke open in Daniel's chest. A wall he'd built brick by brick over years of business deals and cold negotiations. "Do you have children of your own?" he asked. "No, sir. I have a younger brother, but—" She trailed off. "But—" Leanne took a breath. "He was in an accident 3 years ago. Brain damage. He's in a care facility now. I know what it's like when someone you love needs help and the people being paid to provide it don't always do their job." Daniel closed his eyes. Of course she understood. She'd lived it. "Leanne," he said, opening his eyes and looking directly at her, "I owe you an apology. I've been so focused on business, on maintaining appearances, that I failed to see what was happening in my own home. You've been caring for Emma better than anyone I've hired, better than—" He swallowed hard. "Better than her own father." "Sir, that's not—" "It's true," Daniel insisted, "and it's going to change. Starting now." Leanne looked confused. "I don't understand." Daniel turned the laptop back toward himself and pulled up a document. "What's your current salary?" "Mr. Arbridge, I don't need—" "Please, just tell me." $14 an hour, Leanne said quietly. 30 hours a week. Daniel did the math quickly. Roughly $1,680 a month before taxes. She was keeping Emma alive on poverty wages. "That ends today," he said firmly. "From now on, you're Emma's primary caregiver. Your new salary is $65,000 a year, plus full benefits, including health insurance." Leanne's legs seemed to give out. She grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. "Sir, I can't. That's non-negotiable," Daniel said. "You've earned it 100 times over. But I need to know, are you willing to take on the role officially? Emma needs someone who actually cares about her, not just someone collecting a paycheck." Leanne looked at him with tears streaming down her face. "Mr. Arbridge, I'd take care of that little girl for free if you asked me to. She's special. She deserves everything good in this world." Daniel felt his own eyes burning. "Then it's settled. Report to Emma's room at 9 a.m. tomorrow. I'll have HR draw up the paperwork today." "Thank you," Leanne whispered. "Thank you so much." As she turned to leave, Daniel called out, "Leanne?" She looked back. "Thank you," he said, "for seeing my daughter when I failed to, for loving her when everyone else just went through the motions. You saved her life. I'll never forget that." Leanne nodded, unable to speak, and slipped out of the office. Alone again, Daniel sat at his desk and put his head in his hands. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to cry. For his failure as a father, for his daughter's suffering, and for the humble woman who'd shown him what true compassion looked like. The hidden camera had revealed more than negligence. It had revealed the kind of person he'd become, and the kind of person he needed to be. Emma's illness wasn't over. The real challenges still lay ahead. But for the first time since this nightmare began, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in months: hope. The news of Leanne's promotion spread through the Arbridge mansion like wildfire, igniting reactions that ranged from shock to outright hostility. By noon, the entire staff knew that the quiet maid from the East Wing had somehow leapfrogged over trained nurses and experienced caregivers to become Emma's primary attendant, with a salary that dwarfed most of theirs combined. Patricia Henley, the night nurse who'd been assigned to Emma for the past 4 months, was the first to confront Daniel. She stormed into his office at 1:15 p.m. without knocking, her face flushed with indignation. "Mr. Arbridge, I need to speak with you about this situation," she began, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. "I've been a registered nurse for 12 years. I have credentials, certifications, references. And you're replacing me with a housekeeper?" Daniel looked up from his desk, his expression neutral but his jaw set. "You're not being replaced, Patricia. You're being reassigned to assist with Carolyn's needs. Your salary remains the same." "That's not the point," Patricia snapped, then seemed to remember who she was talking to. She softened her tone slightly. "Mr. Arbridge, with all due respect, what qualifications does this woman have? Has she even finished high school? Does she have any medical training whatsoever? She has something more valuable than credentials," Daniel replied evenly. "She has compassion, she has dedication. And unlike some people on my payroll, she actually checks on my daughter during her assigned hours instead of taking personal phone calls in the hallway." Patricia's face went pale. I don't know what you're referring to." "I have cameras, Patricia." Daniel's voice was cold now. "I've seen exactly how you've been spending your time. You're lucky I'm not terminating you entirely. I suggest you accept the reassignment gracefully." Patricia left the office without another word, slamming the door behind her. But she wasn't the only one upset. In the staff kitchen that afternoon, Leanne faced a gauntlet of hostile stares and whispered comments. She'd come down to prepare Emma's lunch, something light and nutritious, chicken broth with vegetables, when she encountered 3 other housekeepers clustered near the refrigerator. Well, said Gloria Martinez, a woman in her 50s who'd worked at the mansion for 6 years. "Look who thinks she's too good to clean toilets now." Leanne kept her eyes down, reaching for ingredients. "I'm just doing what Mr. Arbridge asked me to do." "Right," scoffed another housekeeper, Denise. "And what exactly did you do to get his attention? Because we all know it wasn't your cleaning skills." The implication hung in the air like poison. Leanne's hands froze on the refrigerator door. "That's not what happened," she said quietly, her voice shaking but firm. "I was just taking care of Emma. That's all." Gloria laughed, a harsh sound without humor. "Sure, honey. You just keep telling yourself that. But we all know how this works. Rich man, pretty young girl. I'm not pretty, and I'm not young, and nothing inappropriate happened," Leanne interrupted, her voice rising despite herself. "I sat with a sick child who was being neglected. That's the truth, whether you believe it or not." "Neglected?" Denise's eyes flashed. "Patricia is a trained professional. Patricia spent more time on her phone than with Emma," Leanne shot back. "I know because I heard Emma coughing alone at night while Patricia was in the hallway gossiping. So before you all decide I'm some kind of villain here, maybe ask yourselves why a maid had to do a nurse's job in the first place." The kitchen fell silent. Gloria and Denise exchanged glances but said nothing. Leanne gathered the ingredients she needed and left, her heart pounding. She'd never spoken up like that before, never defended herself so directly. Years of staying invisible, of swallowing insults and keeping quiet, had trained her to accept mistreatment as the price of survival. But something had changed. She wasn't just protecting herself anymore. She was protecting Emma. Upstairs, Emma was sitting up in bed when Leanne returned, looking more alert than she had in weeks. Daniel had moved a comfortable armchair into the corner of the room for Leanne, along with a small desk where she could keep medical logs and supplies. The transformation from impersonal sick room to genuine care space was already underway. "Leanne!" Emma's face lit up when she saw her. "Daddy said you're going to be with me all the time now. Is that true?" Leanne set down the tray of soup and smiled, her earlier confrontation already fading. "That's right, sweetheart. How do you feel about that?" "I'm so happy." Emma reached out her small arms for a hug. "You're my favorite person in the whole house." Leanne embraced the child gently, careful not to jostle her. "Well, you're one of my favorite people in the whole world," she replied. "Now let's get some of this soup in you. You need your strength." As Emma ate, Leanne noticed Daniel standing in the doorway watching them. He'd changed out of his suit into casual clothes, jeans and a sweater, something Leanne had never seen him wear. He looked younger somehow, less intimidating. "How is she?" Daniel asked, stepping into the room. "Better," Leanne reported. "Fever's down to 99.8. Breathing is easier. I think the combination of the new antibiotic and just having consistent care is making a real difference." Daniel sat on the edge of Emma's bed, brushing her blonde hair back from her forehead. It was a tender gesture, but Leanne could see the uncertainty in his movements. He was trying, but he didn't quite know how to be present for his daughter. Years of distance had created a gap he wasn't sure how to cross. "Daddy, can Leanne read to me later?" Emma asked. "She does all the voices really good." Daniel smiled. "Really well, sweetheart." "And yes, of course." He glanced at Leanne. "Unless you need a break?" "I'm fine," Leanne assured him. "Reading is one of my favorite things." "Mine too," Emma said excitedly. "We're reading Charlotte's Web. Do you know it, Daddy?" Daniel hesitated. "I think I read it when I was young. About a pig and a spider. And friendship and sacrifice and saving each other," Emma explained with the seriousness only a 6-year-old can muster. "It's really important." "It sounds important," Daniel agreed. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Undoubtedly work, always work. But for the first time in memory, he ignored it. "Maybe I could listen too, when Leanne reads." Emma's eyes went wide with delight. "Really? You want to?" "I really do." Leanne watched this exchange with a quiet ache in her chest. This was what Emma had been missing. Not expensive doctors or high-tech equipment, but simple presence. A father who chose her over his phone. A parent who wanted to share her world. That evening, after Emma had finished her dinner and taken her medications, the three of them settled into a new routine. Leanne sat in the armchair with Charlotte's Web, Emma propped up on pillows in her bed, and Daniel sat cross-legged on the floor beside them, a position that would have seemed absurd to anyone who knew the formidable businessman. Leanne read about Wilbur the pig and Charlotte the spider, doing voices for each character that made Emma giggle with delight. When she reached the part where Charlotte promises to save Wilbur, Emma interrupted. "That's like you, Leanne," she said softly. "You're like Charlotte. You saved me." Leanne's throat tightened. "Oh, sweetheart, I didn't." "You did," Emma insisted. "I was sick and scared and you came and made me feel safe. That's saving someone." Daniel cleared his throat roughly, and when Leanne glanced at him, she saw his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Emma's right," he said. "You did save her, both of us, really." The moment hung there, fragile and precious, until Leanne gently redirected them back to the story. But something had shifted in that room. They weren't employer and employee anymore. They weren't even quite a family yet. But they were something new. 3 people bound together by a sick child and the decision to truly care. The next few days established a rhythm. Leanne arrived at 7 a.m., checked Emma's vitals, administered medications, and spent the day engaging the girl in gentle activities, reading, puzzles, art projects that didn't require too much energy. Daniel found himself checking in more frequently, sometimes joining them for lunch, other times just watching from the doorway with an expression Leanne couldn't quite read. Carolyn, Emma's mother, was conspicuously absent. She'd made one brief appearance, sweeping into Emma's room in designer athleisure wear, to announce she was thrilled Emma was feeling better, before leaving for a yoga retreat in the Berkshires. Emma barely reacted to her mother's departure. She was used to it. But if the upstairs was finding a new equilibrium, downstairs was fracturing. The resentment toward Leanne grew more pronounced. Someone started leaving her assigned cleaning tasks undone so she'd get blamed. Her lunch disappeared from the staff refrigerator. Once, she found her uniform slashed with scissors, forcing her to wear an old backup that didn't fit properly. Leanne said nothing. She'd survived worse in her life. These petty cruelties were just noise compared to the purpose she felt every day with Emma. On Thursday afternoon, Marcus, the head of household, called a staff meeting. Leanne wasn't technically required to attend since she was now under different employment terms, but Marcus specifically requested her presence. The staff gathered in the formal dining room, an ironic choice given the informality of most of their roles. Leanne took a seat near the back, hyper-aware of the hostile glares directed her way. Marcus stood at the head of the table, a tall man in his 60s with salt and pepper hair and an air of authority. He'd run the Arbridge household for 20 years and commanded genuine respect from most of the staff. "Thank you all for coming," he began. "I know there's been some tension regarding recent changes in Emma's care arrangements. I want to address that directly. Leanne's stomach nodded. Mr. Arbridge has made his decision based on what he believes is best for his daughter, Marcus continued. That decision is final and not subject to debate. However, I understand that change can be difficult, especially when it feels sudden or unexplained. Gloria raised her hand. Marcus, with respect, it's not just about change. It's about qualifications. We have trained medical professionals on staff, and suddenly a housekeeper, no offense to Leanne, is earning more than some of us combined. How is that fair? Fair? Marcus's expression hardened. Let me tell you what wasn't fair. A 6-year-old child struggling to breathe at night while her paid nurse was too busy texting to check on her. A little girl missing medication doses because no one bothered to follow the schedule. That's what wasn't fair. The room went silent. Leanne saw what others chose to ignore. Marcus said, his voice gentler now. She acted when action was needed. Not because it was her job, not because she'd be rewarded, because it was right. If you're angry about that, I'd suggest you examine your own priorities. He let that sink in before continuing. Mr. Arbridge has been more than generous with all of you. You work in comfortable conditions. You're paid well. You have benefits most domestic workers can only dream of. The only thing he's ever asked in return is that you do your jobs with integrity. If Leanne's promotion bothers you, perhaps it's because she reminded you what integrity actually looks like. Gloria looked down at the table. Denise shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Even Patricia, sitting near the front, seemed chastened. This meeting is over, Marcus concluded. You all have work to do. I expect professionalism from here forward. Understood? A chorus of quiet, "Yes, sir," responses followed. As people filed out, Marcus caught Leanne's eye and nodded. A small gesture of solidarity that made her eyes sting with gratitude. She wasn't completely alone after all. That evening, as Leanne was preparing Emma for bed, Daniel appeared with an unusual request. Would you join me for dinner tonight? He asked. After Emma's asleep, in the main dining room. Just you and me. I'd like to talk. Leanne's first instinct was panic. Sir, I don't think... Please, Daniel interrupted gently. Not as employer and employee, as two people who care about the same little girl. I need your insight on something, and I'd prefer to discuss it properly, not in rushed conversations between medication doses. Leanne glanced at Emma, who was already drowsy from her evening medicine. Okay, she agreed cautiously. What time? 8:30? I'll have the chef prepare something. Do you have any dietary restrictions? The question was so thoughtful, so considerate that Leanne almost laughed. When had anyone ever asked her about dietary restrictions? No, sir, I eat pretty much anything. Daniel, he corrected. When we're not around Emma, please call me Daniel. Sir makes me feel like I'm 100 years old. At 8:30, Leanne found herself sitting at one end of the massive dining table, feeling absurdly out of place. The chandelier above cast warm light over china so delicate it looked like it might shatter if you breathed on it. The chef had prepared a simple but elegant meal: roasted chicken, seasonal vegetables, crusty bread that was still warm. Daniel sat at the other end, having changed into a casual button-down shirt. He looked tired but more relaxed than Leanne had ever seen him. Thank you for coming, he said as the server poured wine for him and sparkling water for Leanne. I know this must feel strange. A little, Leanne admitted. I've never eaten in this room. Usually I'm cleaning it. Daniel winced. I'm sorry. We could move somewhere else. No, it's fine, Leanne assured him. I'm just not used to being on this side of things. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Daniel spoke again. I wanted to ask you about Emma's medical care going forward. Dr. Morrison, her pediatrician, wants to run more tests. He thinks there might be an underlying autoimmune condition causing her symptoms. The tests are extensive. Some of them are unpleasant. Leanne set down her fork. What kind of unpleasant? Blood draws, spinal taps, biopsies. Nothing dangerous but painful and scary for a 6-year-old. Daniel's hands clenched around his wine glass. I don't know how to prepare her for that. I don't know how to be there for her in the way she needs. You're learning, Leanne said gently. You've been showing up more this week than probably the whole month before. Emma notices. She talks about you. What does she say? That her daddy is reading with her now. That he asks how she feels instead of just working all the time. That's huge, Daniel. You're doing better than you think. Daniel looked at her with such raw vulnerability that Leanne felt her heart crack a little. I want to be a better father. I want to be present. But I'm terrified of failing her again. What if I can't handle seeing her in pain? What if I freeze up or make things worse? Leanne thought about her brother, about all the hospital visits and difficult procedures she'd navigated alone. You won't be alone, she said. I'll be there with you, with both of you. We'll get through it together. Why? Daniel asked suddenly. Why do you care so much? You barely knew Emma a few months ago. You could have just done your job and gone home. Why did you choose to get involved? Leanne considered the question, trying to find words for something she'd never fully articulated even to herself. When I was 10 years old, my mama got real sick. Cancer. We didn't have much money, couldn't afford the best care. I watched her suffer while people who were supposed to help her just went through the motions. She died when I was 12. Daniel's expression shifted to one of deep sympathy. Leanne, I'm so sorry. After that, I swore that if I ever had the power to help someone who was suffering, I would. No matter what it cost me. No matter if anyone noticed or thanked me. Because I remembered what it felt like to be helpless. To watch someone I loved suffer while the world just kept spinning. She met his eyes directly. Emma was suffering. I had the power to help, so I did. It's that simple. It's not simple at all, Daniel said quietly. It's extraordinary. You're extraordinary. Leanne felt heat rise to her cheeks. I'm just doing what anyone with a heart would do. No, Daniel insisted. Most people wouldn't. Most people would convince themselves it's not their problem, not their responsibility. You chose differently. That matters. It matters more than you know. The dinner continued, the conversation shifting to lighter topics. Emma's favorite books, funny things she'd said, small victories in her recovery. By the time Leanne returned to her quarters that night, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years. She felt seen, valued, like she mattered not because of what she could do for someone, but because of who she was. It was a dangerous feeling, one she'd have to be careful about, because in a world divided by wealth and class and skin color and 1,000 other invisible walls, feelings like that rarely ended well for people like her. But as she drifted off to sleep, Leanne allowed herself a small hope that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. The medical test began on a gray Monday morning in late October. Dr. Richard Morrison arrived at the mansion at 7 a.m. with a mobile laboratory team, transforming Emma's cheerful bedroom into a clinical space filled with equipment and sterile supplies. The decision to conduct the procedures at home rather than a hospital was Daniel's. He wanted Emma to feel as safe and comfortable as possible during what would be an ordeal. Leanne had prepared Emma as best she could, explaining in simple terms what would happen and why it was necessary. The doctors need to look inside your body to figure out what's making you feel sick, she'd said, holding Emma's hands. Some of it might hurt a little, but I'll be right there the whole time, and your daddy will be there too. Will you hold my hand? Emma had asked, her blue eyes wide with fear. Every single second, Leanne promised. Now, watching Dr. Morrison arrange his instruments on a sterile tray, Leanne felt her own anxiety rising. She'd been through medical procedures with her brother, but watching a child face them was different, harder. Daniel stood near the window, his face pale, hands shoved deep in his pockets. He looked like he wanted to run. Mr. Arbridge, Dr. Morrison said, his tone professional but kind. I know this is difficult, but these tests are crucial. Emma's symptoms, the recurring fevers, the joint pain, the inflammation markers in her blood, they're pointing toward juvenile idiopathic arthritis, possibly combined with an autoimmune disorder. We need definitive answers to create the right treatment plan. I understand, Daniel said, though his voice was strained. Let's get it done. Emma sat in her bed wearing a hospital gown decorated with butterflies. Leanne had special ordered it to make the experience less frightening. The little girl was trying to be brave, but her hands trembled as she clutched her favorite stuffed rabbit. The first procedure was a comprehensive blood draw. The phlebotomist, a gentle woman named Susan, approached with practiced calm. Hi, Emma. I'm going to put a little band around your arm, okay? It might feel tight, but it'll only be for a minute. Emma looked at Leanne, who moved immediately to the bedside and took the child's free hand. I'm right here, baby. You're doing so good. Want to tell me about your dream last night? The one with the dolphins? As Emma began describing her dream, her attention divided. Susan worked quickly and efficiently. The needle went in, and Emma gasped, tears springing to her eyes. But Leanne kept talking, kept her engaged, squeezing her hand with steady pressure. That's it, sweetheart. Almost done. You're so brave. The bravest girl I know. Daniel watched from across the room, his jaw clenched so tight Leanne could see the muscle jumping. When the blood draw finished and Emma started crying in earnest, He finally moved forward, sitting on the other side of the bed. "Hey, Emmy," he said, using a nickname Leanne had never heard before. "You did amazing. I'm so proud of you." Emma turned her tear-stained face toward him. "It hurt, Daddy." "I know, sweetheart, I know." Daniel looked helpless, unsure what to do with his hands. Leanne gently guided one of them to rest on Emma's shoulder. The simple touch seemed to ground both father and daughter. The next procedure was more invasive, a joint fluid aspiration from Emma's swollen knee. Dr. Morrison explained it would help determine if there was inflammation or infection in the joint itself. This one required local anesthetic, more equipment, more time. "I need both of you to help keep her still," Dr. Morrison instructed Leanne and Daniel. "Emma, honey, this is going to feel like pressure and a pinch, but Leanne and your daddy are going to be right here, okay?" Emma nodded, but Leanne could feel the child's entire body tensing with fear. She positioned herself at the head of the bed, cradling Emma's head against her chest while Daniel held Emma's hands. The positioning forced them into close proximity. Leanne could smell Daniel's cologne, could feel the heat of his body next to hers as they both focused entirely on comforting the terrified child between them. Dr. Morrison worked with careful precision. When the needle penetrated the joint capsule, Emma screamed, a sound that tore through Leanne's heart like a blade. She held the child tighter, whispering prayers and comfort in equal measure. "Almost done, baby. Almost done. You're so strong. God's got you. We've got you." Daniel's face had gone ashen, but he didn't let go of Emma's hands. "You're okay, Emmy. Just a little longer. You can do this." When it was finally over, Emma collapsed against Leanne, sobbing. Dr. Morrison and his team stepped back to process the samples, giving them space. Daniel sat frozen, looking shell-shocked. "First time watching something like that?" Leanne asked quietly. Daniel nodded. "I've negotiated million-dollar deals without flinching, but hearing my daughter scream," his voice cracked. "I wanted to make him stop. I wanted to tell him to get out, to leave her alone. But you didn't," Leanne pointed out. "You stayed. You held her. That's what she needed." "How do you do this?" Daniel asked, looking at her with something like awe. "How do you stay so calm?" "I'm not calm inside," Leanne admitted. "My heart's breaking just like yours. But she needs us to be her strength right now. We can fall apart later." The procedures continued throughout the morning. A throat culture, an x-ray of Emma's chest and joints, which required a portable machine to be brought in. Each test chipped away at Emma's courage, but she never asked them to stop. She trusted Leanne and her father to get her through it. By noon, Dr. Morrison was packing up his equipment. "That's everything we need for now," he said. "Results should be back in 3 to 5 days." "Emma, you were incredibly brave today. I know that was hard." Emma, exhausted and hurting, barely acknowledged him. She'd curled up in Leanne's arms and fallen into an exhausted sleep. After the medical team left, Daniel slumped into the armchair, putting his head in his hands. "I can't do that again," he said quietly. "If they need more tests, I don't think I can watch." "Yes, you can," Leanne said firmly, still holding the sleeping Emma. "Because she needs you, and you're stronger than you think." "I'm not strong. I'm a coward. I've been hiding from my own daughter's illness, letting other people deal with it because I couldn't face it. You're facing it now, that's what matters." Daniel looked up at her, his eyes red-rimmed. "What if the results are bad? What if it's something serious that we can't fix? Then we deal with it," Leanne said simply. "Together, one day at a time. That's all we can do." The waiting for test results was agonizing. Emma recovered slowly from the procedures, spending most of the next 2 days sleeping or lying listlessly in bed. Leanne rarely left her side, and Daniel found himself spending more time in Emma's room than in his office for the first time since she'd been born. On Tuesday afternoon, Carolyn returned from her yoga retreat, breezing into Emma's room with shopping bags from Manhattan boutiques. "There's my brave girl," she announced, as if Emma had accomplished something optional rather than endured necessary medical procedures. "I brought you presents." Emma managed a weak smile as Carolyn pulled out a designer dress that cost more than Leanne made in a month at her old salary. "Thanks, Mama. You'll look beautiful in this for the Christmas gala," Carolyn said, holding it up. "Everyone will want pictures with you." "Carolyn," Daniel said from the doorway, his voice tight. "She just had a lumbar puncture yesterday. She's not going to any gala." Carolyn waved her hand dismissively. "That's 2 months away, Daniel. She'll be fine by then. Children bounce back quickly." "She has a serious medical condition," Daniel shot back. "This isn't a cold that goes away in a week." "Well, we don't know that for sure yet, do we?" Carolyn's tone turned sharp. "Let's not be dramatic. Emma's always been a bit delicate. She probably just needs to toughen up. Get out. The words came from Leanne, who'd spoken so quietly that at first, no one was sure they'd heard correctly. Carolyn turned to her, eyebrows raised. Excuse me, I said get out. Leanne stood, her voice stronger now. Emma needs rest, not stress. She doesn't need to hear her mother suggest that her real medical condition is somehow a character flaw she needs to overcome. Carolyn's face flushed red. How dare you speak to me that way? Daniel, are you going to let the help talk to me like this? Daniel looked between Leanne and his wife, and something in his expression shifted. Leanne's right. Emma needs rest. We can discuss the gala another time. Unbelievable, Carolyn hissed. She dropped the dress on a chair and stormed out, her heels clicking sharply against the marble hallway. In the silence that followed, Emma spoke up softly. Thank you, Leanne. I didn't want to go to that gala anyway. I know, baby. Leanne smoothed Emma's hair back. You rest now. After Emma fell asleep again, Daniel caught Leanne in the hallway. Thank you for standing up to her. I should have done that myself. You backed me up. That's what mattered. Carolyn and I. Daniel hesitated. Our marriage has been over for years. We just maintain appearances. But after this, after seeing what Emma's going through and how Carolyn responds to it, he shook his head. I can't keep pretending anymore. That's between you and her, Leanne said carefully. I shouldn't have spoken to her like that. It wasn't my place. It absolutely was your place, Daniel insisted. You were protecting Emma. You have more right to be in that room than Carolyn does at this point. And that's the sad truth. The test results came back on Thursday afternoon. Dr. Morrison requested a meeting at the mansion, which Daniel knew meant the news was significant. He asked Leanne to be present, which she found both touching and terrifying. They met in Daniel's office while Emma napped. Dr. Morrison sat across from them, a folder of results on his lap. The good news, he began, is that we've identified the problem. Emma has juvenile rheumatoid arthritis combined with a mild autoimmune disorder that's been causing the recurrent fevers and inflammation. And the bad news? Daniel asked. It's a chronic condition. There's no cure, but it's highly manageable with the right treatment protocol, medication, physical therapy, lifestyle modifications. With proper care, Emma can live a completely normal life. She'll have flare-ups, periods where symptoms worsen, but they can be controlled. Leanne felt relief wash over her. Not cancer, not something degenerative, manageable. Daniel was processing differently. Chronic. You mean for the rest of her life? Yes, but Mr. Arbridge, this is actually a very positive outcome. Many of the conditions we were testing for were far more serious. JRA is challenging, but it's something Emma can live well with. What does treatment look like? Leanne asked. Dr. Morrison outlined a comprehensive plan. Anti-inflammatory medications, immune suppressants during flare-ups, weekly physical therapy sessions, dietary modifications to reduce inflammation. It was a lot, but it was doable. The most important factor in successful management, Dr. Morrison emphasized, is consistent attentive care. Medications must be taken on schedule. Symptoms must be monitored closely. Emma will need someone watching for early signs of flare-ups so we can intervene quickly. He looked directly at Leanne. I understand you've been providing Emma's primary care. I can't express how crucial your role will be going forward. This condition requires the kind of dedicated attention that, frankly, most professional caregivers don't provide. You've been doing exactly what Emma needs. After Dr. Morrison left, Daniel and Leanne sat in silence for a long moment. She's going to be okay, Leanne said finally. This is good news, Daniel. I know, Daniel stood and walked to the window. I keep thinking about all the time I wasted, all the months I could have been present for her, really present. And I chose work instead. I chose deals and meetings and things that don't matter nearly as much as her. You can't change the past, Leanne said gently, but you can change right now. And you have been. Emma sees that. Daniel turned to face her. I don't know what I would have done without you these past weeks. You've been Emma's lifeline, and mine too, honestly. There was something in his voice, in the way he looked at her, that made Leanne's heart skip. She stood quickly, suddenly aware of how small the office felt, how close they were standing. I should check on Emma, she said. She'll want to know what the doctor said. Leanne, wait. Daniel caught her hand. The touch was electric, sending warmth up her arm. I just want you to know, you're family now. To Emma, certainly, but to me too. I hope you know that. Family. The word hung between them, both a comfort and a complexity Leanne wasn't ready to examine. "Thank you," she managed. "That means a lot." She pulled her hand away gently and left the office, her heart pounding. She told herself it was just gratitude he felt, just appreciation for caring for his daughter. Nothing more. But as she climbed the stairs to Emma's room, Leanne couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting between them. Something that went beyond employer and employee, beyond caregiver and parent. Something that, in the rigid world they inhabited, could only lead to trouble. Thanksgiving arrived with the kind of bitter cold that makes Connecticut feel like the edge of the world. The Arbridge mansion was decorated with expensive autumn arrangements, professionally designed displays of gourds, rustic wheat bundles, and artfully scattered leaves that looked nothing like the real chaos of fall. Carolyn had insisted on hosting her annual Thanksgiving dinner, despite Daniel's objections, inviting 30 guests from their social circle for an evening of appearances and empty conversation. Emma was having a bad week. Her new medication regimen had started, but the side effects left her nauseous and tired. Her joints ached more than usual. Dr. Morrison had warned that things might get worse before they got better as her body adjusted to treatment. Leanne spent most of her time helping Emma manage the discomfort, finding creative ways to distract her from the pain. "I don't want to go downstairs for dinner," Emma said on Thanksgiving morning, her voice small. She was curled up in bed, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "All those people staring at me asking questions." "You don't have to go anywhere you don't want to," Leanne assured her. "Your daddy will understand." But when Daniel came to check on Emma before the guests arrived, Carolyn was with him, dressed in a burgundy cocktail dress that probably cost more than a used car, her makeup flawless, every hair in place. "Emma, darling, you need to at least make an appearance," Carolyn insisted. "People are asking about you. It looks strange if you don't come down at all." "She's not feeling well," Daniel said firmly. "She's staying upstairs." "For heaven's sake, Daniel, she can sit in a chair for 30 minutes and smile. That's all I'm asking. This is important for our reputation." "Our reputation?" Daniel's voice went dangerously quiet. "Our daughter is in pain and you're worried about what the Hendersons will think?" Carolyn's expression hardened. "You've changed, Daniel. Ever since you promoted that woman," she gestured dismissively toward Leanne, "you've become completely unreasonable. This used to be a well-run household with proper priorities." "Proper priorities," Daniel repeated slowly. "Like putting social appearances above our child's well-being. Like maintaining the standards we've built our life around." Emma started crying, soft, heartbroken sobs that cut through the argument like a knife. Leanne immediately moved to comfort her, shooting both parents a look that could have frozen steel. "Both of you need to leave," Leanne said quietly, but with absolute authority. "Right now. You're upsetting her." Carolyn's mouth fell open in outrage, but Daniel was already backing toward the door. "You're right, I'm sorry, Emma." He looked at Carolyn. "We're done here. The guests are your guests. You handle them." After they left, Leanne held Emma until the crying subsided. "I'm sorry, sweetheart, that wasn't fair to you." "Why do they fight so much?" Emma asked through hiccups. "Because sometimes grown-ups forget what's really important," Leanne said honestly. "But your daddy's learning. He's trying." "What about Mama?" Leanne chose her words carefully. "Your mama loves you in her own way. She just shows it differently than we might want." Downstairs, the dinner party proceeded with mechanical perfection. Carolyn played the gracious hostess, laughing at jokes that weren't funny, accepting compliments on decorations she'd hired someone else to create. Daniel moved through the evening like a ghost, making the bare minimum of conversation, counting down the minutes until he could escape. Around 8 p.m., he slipped away and climbed the stairs to Emma's room. He found Leanne and Emma having their own Thanksgiving celebration. A small folding table set up beside the bed with turkey sandwiches, mashed sweet potatoes, and apple cider. They were watching a movie on Leanne's laptop, Emma's head resting against Leanne's shoulder. "Can I join you?" Daniel asked from the doorway. Emma's face brightened. "Daddy, yes." Leanne started to stand to give him her seat, but Daniel waved her back down. Instead, he pulled up a chair on Emma's other side, creating an intimate circle around the small table. "This looks better than anything downstairs," he said, gesturing to their simple meal. "Leanne made the sweet potatoes herself," Emma announced, "with cinnamon and butter. They're the best I've ever had." "High praise," Daniel smiled. He looked at Leanne. "Thank you for being here, for making this bearable for her." "Of course," Leanne said softly. They ate together in comfortable silence, the sounds of the party downstairs a distant murmur. Emma dozed off halfway through the movie, exhausted from her earlier tears. Daniel carefully adjusted her pillows while Leanne cleaned up the dishes. "I'm filing for divorce," Daniel said suddenly, his voice low so as not to wake Emma. Leanne froze, a plate in her hands. "Daniel, it's been coming for years. But tonight, watching Carolyn prioritize a dinner party over Emma's comfort, that was the final straw." He looked at his sleeping daughter. "I want Emma to grow up seeing what real love looks like. Real partnership, real family. Not this hollow performance we've been staging." "That's a big decision," Leanne said carefully. "It's the right decision." Daniel stood, moving closer to where Leanne stood by the small table. "These past few weeks being present for Emma, working with you to care for her, it's shown me what I've been missing. What we've both been missing." There was something in his eyes that made Leanne's breath catch, something warm and intense and dangerous. "Daniel, I know," he interrupted gently. "I know all the reasons this is complicated, but I need you to know that what I feel." He stopped, seeming to struggle with words. "You're not just Emma's caregiver. You're not just staff. You're the first person in years who's made me want to be better, to do better." Leanne's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. "I care about Emma, that's what this is about." "Is it?" Daniel asked quietly. "Is that all?" Before Leanne could answer, a sharp knock sounded at the door. They sprang apart guiltily as Marcus, the head of household, entered. "Mr. Arbridge, I apologize for the interruption, but Mrs. Arbridge is asking for you. One of the guests has taken ill." Daniel closed his eyes briefly, frustration clear on his face. "Of course, I'll be right down." After Marcus left, Daniel turned back to Leanne. "We should talk. Really talk. Soon." "Maybe that's not a good idea," Leanne said, her voice shaking slightly. "Why not?" "Because I'm falling for you," Leanne thought. "Because you're a millionaire and I'm a maid and this can only end badly. Because Emma needs stability, not complications. Because the world doesn't work the way fairy tales do. Because Emma needs us both focused on her," she said instead. "Not on anything else." Daniel nodded slowly, though disappointment flickered across his face. "You're right. Emma comes first, always." He left and Leanne sank into the armchair, her hands trembling. She'd been in dangerous situations before. Poverty, violence, uncertainty. But this felt like a different kind of danger. The kind that came from wanting something you knew you couldn't have. The next morning, the mansion buzzed with whispered conversations. Daniel had apparently told Carolyn about the divorce late the previous night, and she'd responded by throwing a crystal vase at his head. It missed, but shattered spectacularly against the hallway wall. Now she was locked in the master suite with her lawyer on speakerphone, her voice carrying through the house in furious bursts. Leanne kept Emma distracted, but the child wasn't fooled. "Are they getting divorced because of me?" Emma asked, tears in her eyes. "No, baby, no." Leanne pulled her close. "Your parents' problems have nothing to do with you. You're the best thing in both their lives. This is about grown-up stuff that started long before you were born. But if I wasn't sick—" "Emma, listen to me." Leanne took the child's face in her hands. "You being sick didn't cause this. If anything, it just made your daddy realize what really matters. And that's you. Always you." Over the next week, the divorce proceedings began in earnest. Carolyn demanded the mansion, half of Daniel's assets, and full custody of Emma. Daniel's lawyers countered with evidence of her negligence. The documented absences, the prioritization of social events over their daughter's care, witness statements from staff about her indifference to Emma's condition. It was ugly and public and exactly the kind of spectacle Carolyn had always feared. The society pages she'd cultivated so carefully now featured speculation about the Arbridge split, complete with unflattering paparazzi photos and anonymous quotes from sources close to the family. Through it all, Leanne maintained her focus on Emma. The medication was starting to work. The flare-ups were less severe, the pain more manageable. Physical therapy sessions had begun, teaching Emma exercises to maintain her joint flexibility. Slowly, carefully, the little girl was getting stronger. One evening in early December, as Leanne helped Emma through her stretching routine, Daniel appeared in the doorway looking exhausted but somehow lighter. "We settled," he announced. "Carolyn gets the Manhattan penthouse, a generous financial settlement and liberal visitation rights. I keep the mansion and primary custody." Emma looked up from her stretches. "What does that mean?" "It means you'll live here with me," Daniel explained, kneeling beside her. "And Leanne, if she's willing to stay. Your mom can visit whenever she wants, and you can stay with her in the city sometimes if you'd like." "Will Leanne still be here?" Emma asked, her voice anxious. Daniel looked at Leanne. "That's up to her. I'm not going anywhere, Leanne promised, though her heart was racing. Not unless you want me to. Never, Emma said fiercely, wrapping her arms around Leanne's waist. That night, after Emma was asleep, Daniel found Leanne in the kitchen preparing the next day's medications. The house was quiet, most of the staff gone for the day. Thank you, he said simply, for staying, for everything. Emma needs consistency right now, Leanne replied, not looking up from her careful measuring. Just Emma? Leanne's hands stilled. Daniel, I know, he said quietly. I know all the reasons we shouldn't have this conversation, but Carolyn's moving out next week. The divorce will be final in 6 months. And I need you to know that when that happens, when there's no more complications, no more barriers, I'd like the chance to get to know you, really know you, not as Emma's caregiver, as Leanne. Leanne finally looked up, meeting his eyes. You don't know what you're asking. I think I do. No, you see someone who helped your daughter, someone kind and caring, but you don't see the reality. I'm a black woman from the south side of Chicago with a GED and a brother in a care facility I can barely afford. Your world and mine don't mix, Daniel. They never have. Maybe it's time they did, Daniel said softly. Before Leanne could respond, they heard Emma calling from upstairs. A nightmare, needing comfort. The moment broken, they both headed for the stairs. The conversation left hanging like a question neither was quite ready to answer. Winter settled over Connecticut like a heavy blanket, transforming the Arbridge estate into a crystalline wonderland. Snow covered the manicured lawns, icicles hung from the eaves like frozen tears, and inside the mansion something fundamental was shifting. Carolyn moved out 3 days before Christmas, her departure marked by moving trucks and tight-lipped efficiency. She kissed Emma goodbye with promises of shopping trips and Broadway shows, but there was a distance in her eyes that everyone recognized. She was relieved to be free of the responsibility, even if she'd never admit it aloud. Emma handled it better than Daniel expected. Mama's happier now, she observed with the blunt wisdom of children. She doesn't like being here. It's okay, Daddy. I have you and Leanne. The simplicity of that statement, the easy way Emma grouped them together, made Daniel's chest tight with emotions he was still learning to name. Christmas came quietly. No elaborate party, no social obligations. Just the three of them decorating a tree in Emma's room, baking cookies that turned out lopsided but delicious, watching holiday movies curled up together. It was the best Christmas Daniel could remember in years. On Christmas morning, Emma opened her gifts with genuine joy. Art supplies from Leanne, a collection of books from Daniel, and a custom-made leg brace from Dr. Morrison that would help support her weakened joints. She wore it proudly, declaring it made her look like a superhero. Leanne received gifts too, which surprised her. From Emma, a hand-drawn picture of the three of them labeled "My Family" in careful crayon letters. From Daniel, something that made her hands shake when she opened it, an envelope containing a check for $10,000 and a note that read, "For your brother's care facility. No one should have to choose between helping the people they love. Merry Christmas. D." "Daniel, I can't accept this," Leanne whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "Yes, you can," he said firmly. "You've given us everything. Let me give something back." That afternoon, while Emma napped, Leanne made a video call to her brother's facility. Marcus, her younger brother, appeared on screen, his face lighting up with recognition that came and went like clouds passing over the sun. The brain damage had stolen so much of who he'd been, but moments of clarity still broke through. "Lily," he said, using his childhood nickname for her. "You look happy." "I am happy, Mark. I'm helping take care of a little girl. She's special like you." "That's good. You were always good at taking care of people." His expression grew distant. "Did Mama ever come back?" Leanne's throat tightened. This was the question he asked every time, his damaged brain unable to hold on to the truth that their mother had died 22 years ago. "Not yet, baby. But she loves you. She's always loved you." When the call ended, Leanne found herself crying. Years of accumulated grief and stress and exhaustion finally breaking through the walls she'd built to survive. She didn't hear Daniel enter the room until he was kneeling beside her chair. "Hey," he said softly. "What do you need?" Not, "What's wrong?" or "Don't cry." Just, "What do you need?" The question was so simple, so perfect, that it made her cry harder. "I don't know," she managed. "I've spent so long just surviving, just getting through each day. I don't even know anymore." Daniel reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gathered her into his arms. Leanne stiffened for a moment. This crossed every professional boundary they'd carefully maintained, but then she collapsed against him, letting herself be held for the first time in longer than she could remember. "You don't have to just survive anymore," Daniel murmured against her hair. "You're allowed to live, to want things, to be happy." They stayed like that until Leanne's tears subsided, until her breathing steadied, until the moment stretched into something neither could pretend was just comfort. When Leanne finally pulled back, Daniel's hand lingered on her face, his thumb brushing away the last tear on her cheek. Their eyes met, and the air between them crackled with everything they'd been carefully not saying for months. "Daniel," Leanne whispered, "we can't." "I know all the reasons we can't," Daniel interrupted gently. "I've listed them 1,000 times in my head, but none of them change how I feel. None of them make you less extraordinary. You don't even really know me. Then let me know you. Not as my employee, not as Emma's caregiver, as Leanne, the woman who prays over sick children in the middle of the night, who sacrifices everything for her brother, who faces down entitled rich people without flinching, who makes my daughter laugh when she's in pain, who makes me want to be the man Emma thinks I am." "And if it doesn't work?" Leanne asked, her voice breaking. "If we try this and it falls apart? What happens to Emma then? She's already been through so much." "Then we make sure it doesn't fall apart," Daniel said simply. "We go slow. We're careful. We put Emma first. Always. But Leanne, I'm falling in love with you. I think I have been since I watched that security footage and realized what you'd been doing. And I know it's complicated and messy and scary, but I also know that the best things in my life have always been the ones I almost talked myself out of." Leanne's heart was pounding so hard she felt dizzy. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Me too. The world isn't kind to people like us being together. You know that, right? A black woman and a white millionaire. People will have opinions, ugly ones. Let them," Daniel said fiercely. "I spent my whole life caring what people thought, building an image, maintaining appearances, and it left me empty and alone with a daughter I barely knew. I'm done with that. I'm done pretending." Leanne searched his face, looking for doubt, for hesitation, for any sign that this was just gratitude or loneliness or temporary insanity. But all she saw was sincerity, and hope, and something that looked a lot like love. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, we can try." Slowly. Daniel's smile could have lit up the entire mansion. "Slowly," he agreed. Their first real date happened 2 weeks later. Marcus agreed to stay with Emma for the evening. The head of household had become one of Leanne's quiet allies, respecting her dedication and discretion. Daniel took Leanne to a small Italian restaurant in a neighboring town, somewhere they wouldn't run into his social circle or attract attention. They talked for hours. Leanne told him about growing up in Chicago, about her mother's illness, about the father who'd left before she could remember him, about working 3 jobs to help support Marcus after the accident, about the guilt she still carried for not being there the night he was hurt. Daniel shared his own story, the pressure to succeed, the gradual erosion of his marriage, the moment he'd realized he'd built a fortune but lost himself in the process. He talked about his own father, a ruthless businessman who'd valued profit over people, and Daniel's fear that he'd become the same kind of man. "But you didn't," Leanne said firmly. "You changed. You chose Emma. You chose what mattered." "I chose because you showed me what it looked like to actually care," Daniel replied. "You were the example I needed." Over the next few months, they built something fragile and precious. Date nights when Marcus could watch Emma, quiet conversations after Emma fell asleep, stolen moments in the kitchen over morning coffee. They moved slowly, carefully, always conscious of Emma's needs and emotions. Emma, for her part, seemed delighted. "Does this mean Leanne is going to be my new mama?" she asked Daniel one evening, with the straightforward curiosity of a 7-year-old. "Would you like that?" Daniel asked carefully. Emma considered this seriously. "Leanne already acts like my mama. She takes care of me and reads to me and knows when I'm scared even before I say anything. So I guess she kind of already is. The official part doesn't matter much." "You're a very wise little girl," Daniel said, pulling her into a hug. But not everyone was accepting. When word inevitably spread through Daniel's social circle that he was dating his former maid, the reactions ranged from scandalized whispers to outright hostility. Former friends stopped calling. Business associates made pointed comments about maintaining appropriate boundaries. One particularly nasty society columnist wrote an entire piece speculating about Leanne's true motivations in pursuing a relationship with a wealthy widower. The article reached Leanne through Gloria, who left it on the staff kitchen table where Leanne would find it. The headline read, "Gold Digger or Guardian Angel? The Mysterious Woman Who Caught Daniel Arbridge." Leanne read it alone in her quarters, each word a small knife. They dug into her background, found records of her brother's accident, his care facility costs. They'd interviewed people from her old neighborhood who barely remembered her. They'd constructed a narrative of calculated manipulation, a poor woman who'd orchestrated her way into a rich man's life through his sick daughter. She was still sitting there, the article crumpled in her hands, when Daniel found her an hour later. "I saw it," he said quietly, closing the door behind him. "Martin sent it to me this morning. Leanne, I'm so sorry. They think I'm using you," Leanne said, her voice hollow. "They think I planned this whole thing, that I'm some kind of con artist. The only people who think that are people who don't know you, who don't matter. They matter to your business, to your reputation. Daniel, this could hurt you." "I don't care." Daniel knelt in front of her, taking the crumpled article and tossing it aside. "I don't care what they write or what they think or what they say at their country club lunches. You know what I care about? The fact that Emma hasn't had a serious flare-up in 2 months because you monitor her so carefully. The fact that she laughs every single day now. The fact that I come home excited to be here instead of dreading it. That's what matters. But, Leanne, look at me." Daniel waited until she met his eyes. "I love you. I love who you are, what you stand for, how you move through the world. I love that you make me want to be better. I love that Emma trusts you completely. I love that you pray over us at night when you think we're sleeping. I love you. And some hit piece in a society column doesn't change that." Leanne felt tears spilling down her cheeks. "I love you too," she whispered. "I've been trying not to, trying to stay professional and careful, but I do. I love you both so much it scares me." Daniel pulled her into his arms, and for a long moment they just held each other. Two people who'd found something real in the midst of pain and uncertainty. That night, Daniel made a decision. He called his lawyer, his publicist, and his CFO into an emergency meeting. By morning, a statement had been released to every major news outlet. "I'm Daniel Arbridge, and I'd like to address recent speculation about my personal life. 8 months ago, my daughter Emma was diagnosed with a serious chronic illness. During that time, Leanne Mercer provided care that went far beyond any job description. She sat with my daughter through painful procedures. She monitored medications, tracked symptoms, and advocated for Emma when no one else would. She did this not because she was paid to, but because she has a capacity for compassion that humbles me every day. Yes, Leanne and I are in a relationship. No, it wasn't planned or calculated. It grew from mutual respect, shared values, and genuine affection. She makes me a better father and a better man. My daughter adores her, and anyone who has a problem with that is welcome to direct their concerns to me personally, though I won't be listening. To those who've written cruel, speculative articles about Leanne's motivations, you don't know her. You don't know her sacrifice, her character, or her heart. But I do, and I'm grateful every day that she chose to be part of our lives. This will be my only statement on this matter. My family's happiness is not up for public debate." The statement went viral within hours. The response was mixed. Some applauded his directness, others doubled down on criticism. But something shifted. The narrative began to change as people who actually knew Leanne, Marcus, Dr. Morrison, even some of the mansion staff who'd initially resented her, came forward with their own stories of her dedication and character. A week later, Leanne received a letter. It was from the mother of another child with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis who'd read about Emma's story. "Thank you for showing my daughter that she can still be loved and valued even with her condition," the letter read. "And thank you for reminding all of us what real care looks like." More letters followed. From other patients, other families, other people who'd felt invisible and finally felt seen. Leanne read each one with tears in her eyes, realizing that somehow their story had become bigger than just them. 6 months after Christmas, on a warm June evening, Daniel proposed. Not with an elaborate production or public spectacle, just the three of them in Emma's room after finishing their nightly reading of Charlotte's Web for the 3rd time. "Leanne," Daniel said, pulling out a simple but beautiful ring, "you saved my daughter's life. You saved mine too. Will you let us make this official? Will you marry me?" Emma bounced on her bed with excitement. "Say yes, Leanne, please say yes." Leanne looked at them both. This man who'd learned to choose love over appearances, this child who'd shown her what it meant to be truly needed, and felt her heart overflow. "Yes," she said, laughing through tears. "Yes, absolutely yes." Emma shrieked with joy and threw her arms around both of them, and they tumbled together in a heap of laughter and tears and relief. The wedding was small and private, held in the mansion's garden on a perfect September afternoon. Emma served as flower girl, wearing her leg brace decorated with flowers that matched her dress. Marcus was there having one of his clearer days, walking Leanne down the aisle with a proud smile. The guest list included only people who'd supported them: Marcus, the household manager, Dr. Morrison, a handful of genuine friends, and some of Leanne's family who'd traveled from Chicago. As Leanne stood facing Daniel, Emma between them holding both their hands, the officiant spoke about the unexpected ways love finds us, about how sometimes the people who save us are the ones we almost overlooked, about how family is built not through blood alone but through choice and commitment and showing up day after day. When they exchanged vows, Daniel's voice was steady. "Leanne, you taught me to see what matters, to be present, to love without holding back. You showed me that the most valuable things in life can't be bought or negotiated. They have to be earned through showing up, through caring, through choosing someone every single day. I promise to choose you and Emma every day for the rest of my life." Leanne's turn came and she looked at Daniel through tears. "I spent most of my life being invisible. Background. Someone people looked through instead of at. You saw me. You valued me. You loved me. Not despite where I came from, but including all of it. You gave me a family when I thought I'd lost mine. I promise to build a home with you where everyone is seen, everyone matters, and love always comes first." They sealed their vows with a kiss, while Emma cheered, and the small gathering applauded. At the reception, Daniel gave a toast that brought everyone to tears. The cameras I installed to catch negligence caught something else instead. Proof that the most important person in my house was the one I'd never truly noticed. Leanne didn't come into our lives for money or status or anything except a job. But she stayed because she has a heart bigger than anyone I've ever known. She stayed for a sick little girl who needed her. And in doing that, she saved all of us. To my wife, the woman who turned our house into a home. Later, as they danced their first dance as husband and wife with Emma sandwiched between them, Daniel leaned down and whispered in Leanne's ear, "Thank you for not staying invisible. Thank you for being brave enough to be seen. Thank you for finally looking." Leanne whispered back. The cameras that had once revealed Leanne's secret kindness now sat unused in Daniel's office. They didn't need surveillance anymore. They had something far more reliable than hidden recordings. They had trust, commitment, and a love built on the foundation of truly seeing each other. Emma's condition remained chronic but manageable. Some days were harder than others, but she faced each challenge with the courage of a child who knew she was completely loved. She thrived in school, made friends who accepted her leg brace as just another part of who she was, and developed a fierce compassion for others who felt overlooked or invisible. Years later, when Emma was preparing to leave for college, she found the old security footage on her father's computer. She watched it alone, Leanne sitting beside her bed, praying, caring, loving a child who wasn't even hers yet. "Mom," Emma said that evening, finding Leanne in the kitchen preparing dinner. "I watched the footage. From when I was 6. Leanne turned from the stove, her face carefully neutral. And I understand now why Dad fell in love with you." Emma's eyes were bright with tears. "You didn't have to do any of that. No one would have known. But you did it anyway because that's who you are. You saved people, Mom. You saved me. You saved Dad. You even saved their marriage by ending it, because it taught Dad what love actually looks like." Leanne pulled her daughter, because Emma was hers now, in every way that mattered, into a tight embrace. "You saved me too, baby girl. You gave me a purpose, a family, a reason to stop just surviving and start living." That night, the three of them sat together in the living room, looking through old photos and laughing about how much had changed. The mansion that had once been a showcase of wealth and appearances had become a home filled with love, laughter, and the knowledge that the most valuable things in life were the ones you couldn't put a price on. Daniel looked at his wife and daughter, both of them arguing good-naturedly about which college Emma should choose, and felt a contentment he'd never imagined possible. He'd built an empire of money and power, but his real fortune was sitting right here. A woman who'd taught him what true strength looked like, and a daughter who was growing into someone who would change the world. And it all started because one humble woman chose compassion over convenience, love over indifference, and showed up night after night for a child who needed her. Sometimes the most extraordinary heroes are the ones the world trains us not to see. But Daniel had learned to look beyond appearances, beyond status, beyond all the superficial markers society used to assign value, and in looking, really looking, he'd found everything that mattered. Thank you for watching this story. If it touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share where you're watching from in the comments.